But I realized also it's not about the curriculum or promotion of certain values, but God has lessons for us to learn. This job is so public, you lose your privacy and you're scrutinized over everything. But God has a way of teaching us great lessons in our struggles. He used one incident to teach me to love my neighbor. Oh man, he was already telling me beforehand, I want you to learn how to love your enemies. And I had a coworker that was consistently attacking me in public and private. It was behind closed doors, he'd yell and scream at me, he'd call me names, and then in public, he would use a newspaper to try to get me in something. He was always working on something. But anyway, but I had the opportunity to use a newspaper to attack back since they gave me 600 words to respond to the situation that this gentleman had put before me in an op-ed piece. Now, 600 words is a lot of words in a newspaper, and when you're given freedom to say whatever you want, I had people wanting me to attack him and this other coworker that were both attacking me. But man, God showed me in that moment, you've got to forgive your enemies and do good to those who despitefully use you and persecute you. that verse, man, that struck a chord. So I said, okay, God, I can do this. So I wrote an article and I shared my views. I took responsibility for whatever he was saying in the newspaper that might have been something I had done wrong. But then I said, let's focus on what we really need to do instead of attacking each other. And let's focus on our school district, the attitude that's going on in the district, and helping support our teachers and our students. So in the end, God had my back. And later people said that I came out smelling like a rose. And the newspaper said they called him a bully. So I was like, wow, that was pretty powerful just to see that happen. But it was so painful in those months that it was going on during an election year. But God used it in a mighty way to humble me and to change me. So, and then also to love those who despitefully use me and persecute me. This public position has also allowed me to have those relationships, not just those in the school district, but also others in public office. I've gotten to know almost every mayor, almost every city council member, board of supervisors, and my state legislators that make state law. I've been able to have them on cell phone and call them and say, hey, this bill is coming before you. Please vote no on it, or please support this one. So I've been able to influence some state leaders in different ways in that. And like I said, I also got to work in the State School Boards Association, California School Boards Association. I'm still in there, but and it's been such a great opportunity God's given me. One year, he led me to ask the mayor for a meeting to pray with other elected officials over our city, and that was through the book I was reading, Second Chronicles, and just the story of Hezekiah struck a chord in me, and how Hezekiah did this. And so God just pushed me and said, go call that mayor. And the Pinnacle ladies, I told them God was telling me this. And then they kept reminding me, did you do it? Did you do it yet? And I was, oh, no, I haven't done it yet. And so they said, you better go do that. So I did. And that was a change in our city. And at that time, we had super high crime. We were number one in the nation for car thefts and for methamphetamines. So to be number one in the nation in my city, and we've been in that position for years. But God overcame that, and just 6 months after praying with those elected officials, school board members, and city leaders, God started to change things, and our gang crime dropped 50%. And we were knocked off the number one car theft capital and meth capital of the nation. And I don't believe we've been there ever since then. So it has been an amazing thing that God did. But he is out to make change, and he calls us into places of leadership, not only to stretch us, but to change the atmosphere in our areas of influence. He also led me to start a citywide prayer breakfast where over 250 city leaders and county leaders come to celebrate all that God has done in our city. So I wanted to tell you just a short little comment about that. We had prayed, this was a few years ago, we had a drought in California. Of course, we don't have a drought now, but we had a drought in California. We had 3 or 4 years and all of our reservoirs were being depleted. And at that time, they do a measurement of the snowpack to see how much water we'll get. And at that time, we only had 4 inches the year before of snowpack, and that wasn't going to fill our reservoirs. It was such a tiny amount. And so then I changed our prayer sheet, because we pray for our city every day. I changed the prayer sheet to ask for God to put snow in the mountains. We'd already been praying for rain, and He'd given our city the adequate rain, but not the mountains, the snow, because we use that snow melt in the reservoirs to irrigate and for all the produce that we have here in the Central Valley in California. Well, that year, that after we started praying, the number, when they went up to the mountains to do the depth of the snow, it was 400 inches. 400 inches. I can't tell you what that meant, but it filled up every single reservoir. It filled up Lake Tahoe. And the newspaper already had said it would take 5 years to fill up our reservoirs. And God did it in 1 year. So we celebrated the good that God had done. And I shared that at one of our prayer breakfasts. And in those prayer breakfasts, we pray for 35 minutes at our tables on those 7 spheres of influence. And it's really, really a prayer breakfast, but it's so great to see our county and city leaders come together. So just in closing, I wanted to say this. Ask God where He wants you to serve. Ask Him with a humble heart, and then He leads you. Step out of that place and watch God do great and mighty things which you cannot know. He's looking for willing hearts. He's calling you to step out into the unknown and trust Him. He's a good shepherd. He's already put something on your heart. Trust Him. Will you be the one to say, "Here I am, send me"?